So I'm just finishing off this video with updates of the dreams I've been having about the eruption of Mount Ngauruhoe in Tongariro, which will be happening soon, presumably following this trans-Tasman mega quake swarm. And I did the first video on the 4th of October, so doing the second part almost a month later. So yeah, just to continue on, so they tightened things up after the eruption on White Island, which was a colossal mess up. A lot of people died in that after that eruption because of the cowardly conduct of the authorities. So that this is pretty crazy. They had helicopters ready to go. This is kind of an interesting aside, but it's not a complete tangent because it relates to my overall points about the spiritual darkness in New Zealand. This story is in many ways a microcosm and illustrative of that phenomena. So yeah, they had like 4 or 5 rescue helicopters ready to go, ready to take off, to go out to White Island to pick up people who were dying and severely injured. But they didn't go. I saw this interview online. There's a 60 Minutes documentary about what happened, which you can look up on 60 Minutes Australia on their channel. They had like 4 or 5 rescue helicopters waiting to go, and they didn't get the all clear that it was safe. Cowards. And those people got left to die. And these brave, good guy Kiwis, these some locals who ran a tour company, they heard what was happening and they just went out there by themselves, and they probably saved quite a few lives. They did a couple of runs out there to grab people and pull them off the island. The government authorities didn't send people out there for about 3 hours. They waited till they got the all clear that it was perfectly safe, because we wouldn't want to risk our lives for someone else's, would we? Because we put us first, and we'd rather let people die than take the risk that it might erupt again, and it didn't. So basically they put themselves first in that situation, and it meant people died. And they literally had 4 or 5 rescue helicopters waiting to go. But that is in many ways the spirit of New Zealand right now, the spirit of cowardice and darkness. And I'll shut up right now because I could write a book about my bad experiences in New Zealand, and I will go off on the mother of all tangents if I say any more. But let's just say they need this volcanic eruption. They need this earthquake. I wouldn't say they need the invasion based on what I've seen. It's so horrible. I'm not sure anyone needs that, but they need these wake-up calls. And they mismanaged that situation on White Island. They let people on that island because they wanted to make money, and they didn't do it professionally, and they bungled the rescue operation because they were kind of selfish and greedy and cold and reptilian. Same reasons that people were on that island are the same reasons that people died, and they screwed up the rescue operation to send people out. But they humiliated New Zealand on a global level, and that and they have collectively, New Zealand is a case study in mass psychosis and collective narcissism. I will talk about this in another video, which I'm probably going to provocatively entitle "Why New Zealand Sucks. Don't live there, just visit," which will get lots of views because they kind of hate themselves and they have very low self-esteem. They can't handle criticism. Aussies can, actually. Most Australians can take it. Kiwis can't. Kiwis can dish it out. They can't take it for the most part. It's very sick, immature, emotionally retarded society. Trust me, I'm 6th generation Kiwi, spent 30 years there. Take it from me, I know. And so they've tightened regulations up after that because it was very embarrassing on a world stage. Nothing like less to be embarrassed when you hate yourself and you have low self-esteem because your parents don't love you because they don't know what love is. But shut up. I'll shut up now. And so they've tightened up the regulations around safety on volcanoes, so they're more careful now. So regardless of how it happened, the government and the authorities do appear to have learned the lesson there. They're more careful and cautious, as they should have. They shouldn't have had to learn the lesson that way, but whatever. So people seem to get warnings, even if they didn't, before this eruption on Mount Tongariro takes place. The people got off the volcano, which is good. So the good news is that, and all the dreams I've seen with the hikers on it, which is good news, it's a nice thing actually, people could feel these earthquakes. There are usually lots of earthquakes before any big volcanic eruption. And people were feeling the tremors. We were seeing like geysers popping out, and we could just feel it was about to erupt. And we ran and we got off the mountain, and all the dreams people seemed to get off the mountain. And then the bubble of gas being released from the volcano is in many ways a volcanic version of the 8.3 on the Richter scale earthquake that occurs off the coast of Castle Point. It had that, in the same way, that's kind of a warning shot before the big quake. This small volcanic eruption in Ngauruhoe will be the kind of warning shot before the big quake there. So it does appear there will be a kind of small release of energy and ash ejected from that volcano. That will be the warning shot before the big one happens. So that's something to understand and bear in mind. Interesting to note that the pipe of fresh air extending from Mount Tongariro coming out into Tokaanu. This is another good example of that whole God as a poet point I made before. You see there are geothermal power stations in the Taupo region, and you see they have lots of pipes taking superheated air from these volcanic vents to the power station. I think it heats up water that then creates steam, which drives turbines. That's how they get the power out of it. But it's carrying hot, superheated, dangerous air that you can't breathe. So again, God is a poet. In this case, I was seeing like hot, steaming air around these pipes, but in this case, the pipes were carrying cool, fresh air that was safe to breathe. That would, in this case, be a lifeline. So it was a kind of inverse situation of what happens in reality. And Tokaanu is a geothermal area, so that's partly why I was being shown it there. So it's kind of elegant symbolism from God in the stream. And some notes here that I just took down. So Singapore is 728.6 square kilometers, or 72,860 hectares. Lake Taupo is... I actually didn't write down the right number. Great number. But it's about, I think, 616 square kilometers, which is about I'll put the correct figure down below in the description box. It's about 61,600 hectares. So Lake Taupo is about the same size as the island of Singapore, and I think it's the third biggest lake in Oceania. And Lake Taupo was formed after the Rotorua eruption, which was the largest volcanic eruption on Earth in the past 70,000 years. This was an eruption of Lake Taupo. 26,500 years ago, it ejected 1,170 cubic kilometers of material into the Earth's atmosphere, causing several hundred kilometers of surrounding land to collapse, thereafter forming the Taupo caldera. This caldera then later filled with fresh water to form Lake Taupo. So that's how it came about. This lake came to be. It's the result of volcanic activity. Who knows if this eruption of Tongariro and Ngauruhoe is big enough, perhaps the same thing will happen there. Perhaps there will just be a hole in the ground that will fill with water and we'll get a Lake Tongariro afterwards. I don't know. I haven't been shown that. And I did some quick calculations online. So I used Global Forest Watch, the map on that. I use that app for my forest conservation work. So using a ruler, rough calculation, it's about, I got 23.6 kilometers from the summit of Mount Ngauruhoe to the southwest corner of Lake Taupo. It's around 25 to 30 kilometers from Ngauruhoe to Kuratau and Tokaanu. So the pyroclastic flow will go for about 30 kilometers. It'll extend about 30 kilometers, which is a long way. So this is a really big volcanic eruption we're talking about. Huge. Any other points to make here? I've seen tsunamis on the surface of Lake Taupo. I'm not sure what that's about. That's all a bit mysterious and mind-blowing, but I'll do another video about that. It's not those three recent dreams I've had about these eruptions, but I had another one recently. Anything else to add? That's pretty much it. Yeah, so you should have a warning shot before the volcanic eruption, not just before this earthquake. But I expect the volcanic eruption will follow shortly after the earthquake. So you'll have a warning before that too. And interestingly, in the long term, it's probably going to be a good thing for the area. All that volcanic ash that it puts out will go all over New Zealand, and it will make the soils a lot more fertile. So, interestingly, in the medium to long term, it'll be a good thing. But at the time, it's going to be utterly disastrous. And I don't know about other parts of New Zealand, but for sure, I've been shown that people will be killed on the south-west side of Lake Taupo. Interestingly, the fact that I saw people in that town in Kuratau, which is also a batch town, a town of holiday houses, suggests strongly that it will happen in summer, because people don't only really go there in summer. Those towns are pretty much empty at other times of the year. So it's more, I don't know, but it's looking likely that it will happen in summer, the volcanic eruption too. Who knows, could be only a month or two after the earthquake, but I don't know that.